welcome to a new video by Literary Retreat. Today I'll be reviewing The Bazaar of Bad Dreams by Stephen King. So, this is a 2015 collection of short stories and some poems. It contains 20 short stories uh, ranging in various lengths, but all are entertaining in their own way. I didn't like them all, but they were ranging from bad to great. And I have to say that all these stories are readable. So, at least there's that. So this was my second book by Stephen King. First was on writing, which I read prior to this, and that was non-fiction. So this was my first fictional book and my second overall book by Stephen King. So I will just be going through the best stories I found on the inside the book. I will not be going through the worst, but you can read my written review in the description, where I've also written about the worst stories in this collection. So I've reviewed 10 stories in this collection in the written review, but I'm only reviewing 5 stories ranging from good to best, which I thought was in this collection. So let me go through my notes. So first we have the story Drunken Fireworks. This is one of the best, this is one of the most humorous tales in the Bazaar of Bad Dreams. King got inspiration for this after hearing a guy talking about a fireworks arm race on a lake in Maine, which is King's hometown. The story is unique as it was told in a confessional format via the perpetrator giving his statement to two officers in the interrogation room. And his incorrectly spoken words make the tale even more funnier than if it was written in the third person. So this was like a mix of humor and horror. So I really liked the story. I thought it was very unique. I thought it had elements which like gave it very good uniqueness. So it was a very good story. So I thought that this was the fifth best story in the collection. Let me go to number four. So number four is Blockade Billy. I think many have heard about the story because I think it's one of his most famous stories. I'm not sure if this was the first time it was included in this collection, but it's one of his best stories. So here we see now here's a story that showcases King's renown as a master of horror. The story is told in the first person by a retired baseball coach about a baseball player who is no longer in the sports records. His name was Blockhead Billy as he could get almost any runner out. He was the reason the now defunct Titans had progressed higher up the ranks during that time. And then later on, much is revealed. I won't go into spoiler territory because this story is very mysterious. It's more like a mystery than a horror. But we have to say, I have to say that it's one of the best stories in this collection. That's why it's number four. Let's go to number three now. So number three is Obits, and this was the 2016 winner for the Edgar Award for Best Short Story. Hence, I thought it would be my favorite one, but it wasn't. It turns out that this wasn't the case. Obits follows an e-journalist who writes funny obituaries of dead celebrities. Enraged, he writes the obituary of his then alive boss, who later on actually dies. Our main character finds out he has the power to kill people by writing their obituaries. Things take a turn for the worse when his crush, also an e-journalist, finds out about his uncanny ability. So basically, in this story, it's kind of like Death Note, but more with comedic elements. So I like how Stephen King, because in many cases writers don't know how to mix comedy and horror, but here he mixes comedy and horror very well. So I really like the take on this story that it mixed comedy and horror. So that was very nice. So Obits is my third, and it's a very good story. Now I'm going to the second story. Now this was almost my favorite until I read the first best story. So this story I would say is one of the best short stories I've ever read. So it's called Bad Little Kid. I recommend this yarn to readers who get off on being terrified out of their wits. I had trouble sleeping that night, I really did, after I concluded Bad Little Kid. As the title suggests, it's about a 6 to 7 year old boy that has made the life of a happily married man a living nightmare. So this boy follows him around or comes into contact with this main character of our, which is the guy. You can even say the bad little kid is the main character or the main antagonist, and it's so horrific. Like literally, I got fears. I got chills down my spine. Like it was so horrific. The story was so horrific that it was so scary, and it was one of the best stories I've ever read. So do read Bad Little Kid, even if you get it separately from somewhere. Do read it. It's one of Stephen King's best works. It's one of the best works of horror ever written, short in the short story format. Now let's go to the first one. Now Afterlife. Now Afterlife is very different. Just like Jack Ketchum showed us in his emotional side with his short story Returns, published in the anthology Gardens of Fiends in 2017, King shows us his spiritual persona with Afterlife. As you have already guessed, King wanted to write a story about life and death, and you won't get a better fictional account of it than this yarn. So basically, King wrote a very good story about the afterlife, because in our lives, the main question we have is what happens after death. So here we see that it was very well balanced, it was very well written, it was, how do you say, that many writers don't get life after death very well written, but here Stephen King nailed it. So it's the best story. I was going to give Bad Little Kid the best story position, but this story was so good that I gave it this position instead. So that's why Afterlife is the number one story in this collection. So this is overall my take. So I would even go to the conclusion of this review. Again, with Afterlife, King has shown that he can write in any genre and pen it in his signature style as well. So that's how good the story is. Now, thank you for reading the best of the Bazaar of Bad Dreams. There are too many stories for me to individually analyze them. There were 20 stories, so I analyzed 10 in this written review and 5 in this spoken review. Even those that were left out in this review are still worth reading, especially the poems. If you are a fan of short literary fiction, you won't get a superior compilation than King's 10th collection of short stories. So I have to say that this is King's 10th collection. So this is like after a very long, I would have suspected that this was his second or third, but he has written so many stories, so these were compiled in this 10th edition. So I have to say that this guy is a very prolific writer. He gets things done, he gets things written. So overall, this short story collection book is worth reading. It's definitely worth reading, worth buying. And if you, I'll show the cover again because it was so good. I got this from Readings Pakistan. I think it's still available. I got this back in 2017 and I wrote the original review back in 2017. But I just wanted to share that this is a very fantastic book and everyone should read it. So thank you so much for watching my review, and I hope you buy the book and we can discuss this down in the comments. And if you have read the book, so let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching and goodbye.